At first glance, I thought this was just a regular cafe.
It definitely has its charms.
You're sitting across from someone at a coffee shop. Maybe it's a coworker, maybe it's someone you just met, maybe it's someone you have absolutely no business thinking about the way you're thinking about them right now. And yet, there it is, that pull, that quiet gravitational force in your chest that says, I can't stop looking at this person. Your thoughts start circling. You replay the way they laughed. You notice details you wouldn't normally notice, the way their hand moved when they spoke, the exact shade of their eyes in that particular lighting. And suddenly, you're not just attracted to someone, you're consumed. You're distracted at work, you're checking your phone, you're constructing entire imaginary futures with a person who probably doesn't even know your middle name. And here's the part that nobody talks about. You didn't choose this. You didn't wake up that morning and say, today I think I'll become emotionally hijacked by a stranger. It just happened. So the real question is, can you actually control it? Can you take that swirling, irrational, deeply human experience and put a leash on it? And if so, how? Let me be honest with you right from the start. This isn't about becoming cold. This isn't about shutting down your emotions or turning yourself into some sort of robot who never feels anything for anyone. That would be miserable, and honestly, it wouldn't even work. What this is about is understanding what's happening inside your brain when you become attracted to someone and learning to respond to it rather than just react. Because there's a massive difference between those two things, and that difference will change how you move through relationships, breakup, obsession, and even your own sense of worth. So let's talk about what's actually going on in your brain when you become attracted to someone. Your brain, as brilliant and sophisticated as it is, has a bit of a design flaw. It treats romantic attraction almost identically to addiction. I'm not being dramatic. Researchers at Rutgers University, led by the biological anthropologist Helen Fisher, put people who were intensely in love into brain scanners. What they found was that the ventral tegmental area, a region deep in the brainstem associated with reward and motivation, lit up like a slot machine. The same region that activates when someone takes cocaine, the same region that fires when a gambler hits a jackpot. Your brain doesn't process attraction as a calm, rational evaluation of compatibility. It processes it as a craving, a need, a chemical event driven largely by dopamine, the neurotransmitter that screams more, more, more every time you get a hit of something pleasurable. And this is why you can't just decide to stop being attracted to someone the way you decide to stop eating bread. Your conscious mind is sitting in the passenger seat, while your limbic system, that ancient emotional core of your brain, is flooring the gas pedal. You're not weak for feeling this way. You're human. But being human doesn't mean being helpless. And this is where things get really interesting. The first thing you need to understand is what I like to call the illusion of uniqueness. When you're deeply attracted to someone, your brain starts telling you a very convincing story. It whispers, this person is different. This person is special. No one else could ever make you feel this way. And look, maybe they are wonderful. Maybe they're genuinely extraordinary. But your brain isn't making that judgment based on evidence. It's making it based on neurochemistry. Dopamine creates a spotlight effect. It narrows your attention onto one person and makes everything about them seem more vivid, more meaningful, more irreplaceable than it objectively is. Psychologists call this limerence, a term coined by Dorothy Tennov in the late 1970s. Limerence is that state of involuntary obsessive longing for another person. It's not love. It's not even deep connection necessarily. It's a mental state. In the moment you can name it, the moment you can look at your own swirling emotions and say, oh, that's limerence, you've already taken the first step towards reclaiming control. Because naming something gives you distance from it. It moves the experience from something that's happening to you to something you can observe. Think of it like standing in a river versus standing on the bank watching the river flow. The emotions are still there, the current is still strong, but you're no longer drowning in it. Now here's the second piece, and this one might sting a little. A lot of the time, intense attraction isn't really about the other person at all. It's about you. It's about what you're missing, what you're hungry for, what you haven't given yourself. There's a concept in psychology called projection, the idea that we often see in others the qualities we desperately want to embody or experience ourselves. You're not just attracted to that person's confidence, you're attracted to the idea of feeling confident. You're not just drawn to their warmth, you're drawn to the possibility of being seen, of being held emotionally, of mattering to someone. And when you start to recognize this, something shifts. You stop putting the other person on a pedestal and start asking yourself a much more powerful question. What is this attraction telling me about what I need? This isn't about dismissing your feelings, it's about deepening your understanding of them. Because when you understand the root of an emotion, it loses its ability to control you blindly. Let me give you a practical example. Let's say you meet someone and you're instantly magnetically drawn to them. Your heart races, you can't focus, you start daydreaming. Now, instead of spiraling into that fantasy, you pause. You ask yourself, what specifically am I attracted to here? Is it their appearance, their energy, the way they made me feel about myself when they paid attention to me? And then you ask the harder follow-up, is this attraction based on something real and reciprocal, or am I filling an emotional void? That pause, that moment of self-inquiry, is everything. Neuroscientists call this cognitive reappraisal, the act of deliberately reinterpreting an emotional experience to change its impact on you. Studies published in the Journal of Cognitive Neuroscience have shown that when people practice reappraisal, the prefrontal cortex, the rational decision-making part of the brain, actually increases its activity while the amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm system, calms down. In other words, you can literally train your brain to respond differently to attraction, not by suppressing it, but by reframing it. And there's another tool that's deceptively simple but incredibly powerful. Distance. Not just physical distance, although that helps. I mean informational distance. Every time you check someone's social media, every time you reread their messages, every time you replay a conversation in your head, you're giving your brain another hit of dopamine. You're feeding the craving, you're keeping the cycle alive. The most effective way to reduce the intensity of an attraction that isn't serving you is to starve it of fuel. Unfollow, mute, stop orbiting. I know it sounds brutal, and I know there's a part of you that wants to hold on because letting go feels like losing something precious. But here's the truth. You're not losing them, you're reclaiming yourself. You're choosing your peace over your obsession, and that's one of the bravest things a person can do. There's also something worth saying about the role of time, because we often underestimate it. Limerence, that intense obsessive attraction, has a biological shelf life. Research suggests it typically lasts anywhere from 18 months to 3 years. Your brain literally cannot sustain that level of neurochemical intensity forever. It burns through its dopamine reserves. The novelty fades, the spotlight dims, and what's left is either a real, grounded connection or nothing at all. So if you're in the thick of it right now, if you feel like this attraction is going to consume you forever, I want you to hear this. It won't. It feels permanent, but it's temporary. Your brain is playing a trick on you, and time is the antidote your body already knows how to administer. But perhaps the most profound shift comes when you stop seeing attraction as something that happens to you and start seeing it as information. Every person you're drawn to is a mirror reflecting something back at you. Your desires, your wounds, your unmet needs, your growth edges. The people who captivate us most are often the ones who activate our deepest patterns, and those patterns usually formed long before we were old enough to choose them. Attachment theory tells us that the way we bonded with our caregivers in early childhood shapes who we're drawn to as adults. If love felt anxious and unpredictable growing up, you might find yourself irresistibly attracted to people who are emotionally unavailable, not because you're broken, but because your nervous system equates that uncertainty with love. And once you see that pattern, once you really see it, you gain the power to make a different choice. Not a perfect choice, not an emotionless choice, but a conscious one.
So no, you can't flip a switch and turn off attraction. Your brain wasn't built with that feature. But you can understand it. You can name it. You can sit with it without acting on it impulsively. You can ask it what it's really about. You can stop feeding it when it's leading you somewhere you don't want to go. And you can trust that the intensity you feel right now is not a life sentence. It's a wave, and waves always pass. You are not at the mercy of your emotions. You never were. You just hadn't been given the language to understand what was happening inside you. And now you have. So the next time that pull shows up, and it will because you're alive and that's what alive people feel, take a breath, notice it, let it exist without letting it decide for you. That's not suppression. That's not coldness. That's mastery. And it's the most loving thing you can do, not just for yourself, but for every relationship you'll ever be a part of. If this made something click for you, if it put words to something you've been feeling but couldn't quite explain, leave a comment and tell me about it.